So if you've got a bit of extra time on your hands and you're stuck for ideas, why not follow the example of Paul Stephenson from the Highlands? He is interviewing rock legends from his back garden shed for his newly created Vintage Rock podcast. It's called the Vintage Rock Pod. And he joins me now to share how he got started. Good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning, Kay.
Good morning. I mean, you've worked in radio for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, about 17 years.
Right.
Until last week.
Oh, okay. Right. All right. So you are a professional then?
Yeah, I suppose you could say that,
yeah. So the podcast, well, you call it the Rock Pod. When did that begin?
The idea for it came around the middle of August. I was furloughed at the start of April, along with many, many other people during this time. And I filled my time just doing things like building tree houses for the kids and making random bits of furniture and then turning my shed into a pub like a lot of other people did. And then at the start of August, I got told that my furlough would be extended until the end of October. So at that point, I was thinking I've got another 10 weeks or so to fill my time. And I love podcasts, so I thought, why not start my own?
Right. And so, I mean, did you immediately know what to do? Because, I mean, it's great to think, oh, why not start a podcast? But a lot of people just get stuck on that thought, don't they? Did you know how to proceed with that?
Yeah, obviously working in radio and things like that, I've got a good basic background on production and things like that. But when it came to what to do, the idea for rock podcast just came to me because of the shed that I made into a pub was a vintage rock pub. I love my podcast. I love classic rock music, so I thought, why not do that? And then I looked into how to host it and things like that. I've got basic equipment. You don't need the most expensive equipment in the world. I've got all the basic stuff and just went from there, really.
Right, so this love of vintage rock has always been with you, has it?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, my kids have to suffer as well. My 8-year-old loves Led Zeppelin because of it, so there you go.
So you've got yourself some great guests so far, haven't you?
Yeah, a bit of perseverance. Not using any of my contacts from radio at all. I just decided to start scanning through websites and management agencies and things like that and just sending off emails and phone calls. And yeah, I've got Kenny Jones, who's the drummer with the Small Faces and the Faces and The Who. And I've had John Ilsley, who's the only ever present, along with Mark Knopfler and Dire Straits. I've had Bruce Watson from Big Country, Colin Blunstone, lead singer of the Zombies, a podcast that just went live today. I've had Mitch Murray, who's sold over 500 million records, and he's written for the likes of Jerry and the Pacemakers, and he's got stories about the Beatles and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, some fascinating stories. And
I guess once you get 2 or 3 of the big names, it becomes easier to get others, yeah?
Yeah, it starts rolling. Again, in this episode that was released today, I managed to speak to Russell Hastings, who gave me an exclusive because he plays with Bruce Foxton, who was the bass player in the Jam, and they're releasing a brand new album. And I got told first all the details and everything like that. So an exclusive, and it's only been going 4 weeks, the podcast.
Oh, fantastic. So, I mean, obviously this is your passion, and it sounds as if it's going really, really well, and you're enjoying doing it. Is it as a hobby? Is it just something to occupy your time? Or are you hoping that this will become, a commercial venture?
Initially, it was to fill my time. It was to keep my brain going because I was a creative in the radio industry. So I was all about coming up with things and ideas and projects and this sort of stuff. So it was to fill my time, to keep me creatively ticking over. But at this stage, it's going really well. You need to get to a certain level of downloads before you can start making it commercially viable for anybody to start sponsoring and things like that. But why not? Why not?
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's often the way that you start off something because you love it, and then it turns into something that can become your income. People would say that that's the best way to approach particularly creative projects, wouldn't there? We also have with us Stevie Middleton, audio development producer at BBC Scotland. Good morning, Stevie.
Good morning, Kay. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. And we have with us Dr. Gary Wood, who's a social psychologist and author of The Psychology of Wellbeing. Good morning to you, Gary.
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. Well, Stevie, first of all, Paul, obviously, with 17 years in the radio business, he had a very good head start in terms of how to proceed with this. For people who have not had that experience, but just like the idea of a podcast, is it worth pursuing?
I think if it is worth pursuing if you're looking to get something out of it for yourself. It's more tricky, as you mentioned at the top. Obviously the podcast marketplace is very, very crowded, and it is really difficult to break through. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing it, getting together with family or friends and recording your chat about something you're passionate about, and then see where it goes from there. It's a simple thing to do as well. With even you can do it on a mobile phone. You don't even need a laptop.
So, but when we say a podcast, how do you actually define that? I mean, anyone can sit around and chat with their family and friends about their stuff and, record it. But that's different from making it into a podcast, because you are going to try and broadcast it to the world, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I suppose to define a podcast, there's probably two parts to the definition. There's like a technical definition, and that's like an audio file which is made available on the internet, which you can download to a computer or mobile device. Now, what's important about that, though, is that once you subscribe to a podcast you like, so whatever podcast you like, Kay, once you subscribe to that, it arrives on your mobile phone or your computer without you asking for it, and that's the key part of it. That's the cast in the podcast, because it's broadcast to your computer. From a sort of what you're listening to, there's a number of elements around it that seem to be quite sort of common across successful podcasts. One thing would be authenticity. So whatever anyone's talking about on that podcast, they are really demonstrating they are passionate about it or genuinely interested in it. And another sort of trait would be you going on some kind of quest or journey to find out something. And in the process of that, you're taking the audience along with you who are listening, and they're going on that journey with you. And I suppose the final thing about it is that whilst we do listen to them in the car and we do listen to them on smart speakers or other ways, it's very much an intimate experience. So it's about people putting the headphones in their ears and listening to a podcast and really feeling like they're involved in that conversation. And all of that, I think, would obviously shape the kind of thing that you want to put on a podcast.
I mean, well, you also said there just at the top, anyone can do it, particularly if you feel that you're going to get kind of personal reward from it. So setting aside any kind of commercial dreams for now, I mean, Gary, do you see it particularly, I mean, podcasts that were around before the pandemic and will be around afterwards, but particularly at this time, can you see value in pursuing a sort of creative passion project like this?
There's so many reasons at the moment why we should pursue something that's, a hobby or something creative. The speakers just talked about authenticity and passion. Also, what happens when you pursue a hobby is you can lose sense of yourself and lose sense of time, and that can actually reduce a lot of stress. The technical definition for that, when we're so embroiled and in something, is called flow. And the idea is if we spend more time in flow, doing things that we love, but also stretch us as human beings, that is a definition of happiness. So I know from my passion's reading, and I know when I start to get stressed, I stop reading. And so that is the first sign for me that I need to, so I force myself to read again. And that tells the brain you can't possibly be stressed. You're reading your Mills and Boone book again. So you need so the brain kind of helps out then with the stress, and it's also something to break up. I tell my coaching clients to read 20 minutes a day. It's also something to break up the day and structure the day. So what Paul's done is wonderful because it's about his passion, it's his hobby, but it's also structuring his day. And we need that.
Just on a little tangent, it's interesting you say that about reading, actually, because in sort of lockdown one, if you like, myself and a lot of my friends said, well, at least it's an opportunity to read because, like you, I love reading, but I usually associate it with relaxation. And I just couldn't read. And lots of people, my friends said the same thing and thought, how strange is this? Because we now have the time and we're not doing it. And it was much easier just to mindlessly sit in front of the television and watch, streaming services. And you're probably right, Gary. It's because reading was a nice thing and you were kind of tainting it in some way. I don't know. It's odd, isn't it?
Well, I know there was, during the first, when we had the lockdown, is that there was a massive spike in books about cleaning. So everybody, so you've talked about cleaning. So there was decluttering and cleaning. So maybe people were reading more practical stuff. Maybe that's the thing, is reading something that can build a skill. And you might want to, there's lots of stuff online of how to set up a podcast. So maybe it's the time to read something that's more practical skills, that's going to, how would you develop a hobby? So rather than something that's pure imagination.
Yeah, I think so. That certainly resonates with me. I mean, Paul, do you feel, apart from, being a creative person, having been involved in the industry, and I mean, obviously, you're putting together a podcast that now you're thinking, ooh, this has got a bit of potential. But has it helped you through, the experience of being on furlough, of being in this uncertain time, of not knowing what was going on with your job, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a very difficult time during lockdown for everybody, but I've got 4 kids and that kind of keeps you busy. I think after the summer when they went back to school, that's when it kind of hit me that I was just at home. I wasn't doing an awful lot, so that's when I needed something to do with my time. And I'm not a big reader. I like listening to podcasts. I like being creative. So it has really, really helped me to focus and given me something to work on. And my wife sees it as my full-time job at the moment. I'm away doing this so much. So yeah, it definitely gives me something to do.
The one thing, though, that is a distinction between what you're doing, because there's now a nice glimmer that this could be something that is a bit of an earner in the future. You take away the hobby status. And I wonder if Gary, that then reintroduces the stress, because the great things about hobbies is that you're not looking for a return. Well, certainly you're not looking for a financial return, Gary.
Well, I think it's important to say that Paul started it not with the idea, with his eye on the business. He started it because it was a passion, and it was to break up the day and to do something. So yes, when we talked about authenticity and passion, so it should be something that you're really interested in, and you're doing it from the reasons of using your skills, making yourself feel better. Think about yourself and about your mental health and structuring your day. Think about that first. And if something else comes of it, it's a bonus.
Yeah. So Stevie, then, for people who have no experience within the broadcast or the podcast kind of business, who think, well, yeah, I might want to do that to get in my flow, what would be your ABC?
So A would be find something to record your discussion on. So whether that's like a mobile phone or whether that's like a laptop, you can get free audio software for both Macs and PCs. So you've got something to record it. And now, obviously, with with the Zoom being such a big thing, people are more used to using headsets or some kind of microphone with a computer. So that will definitely start you on your way. And then I think one of the things would be to have a think about what is it that you really want to achieve with the podcast. Do you want to have a chat about board games? Are you into board games? Because believe it or not, there's podcasts about everything out there. So if that is your thing, then you maybe do a little bit of research and have a look and see what is out there and how you can have a chat about it would be different. And then I would say finally, just go and do it and enjoy it and don't have any expectation from it. You just go out there and record it and see what it sounds like. And then you can, to get it out into the sort of podcast ether, there's various sort of websites that will allow you to do that. There's one called Libsyn, and they maybe charge you a little bit of money for it. And then there's a few other ones. And basically for a couple of dollars a month, you upload your file and it gets distributed out to all the sort of various places where you get your podcast, and it's out there. I echo both guys' points in that its most important thing is just to enjoy it and see what happens. Yeah. Never know.
Have there been, Stevie, and I'm sure there have been sort of unexpected successes, people who have just started something because it's of interest to them and kind of, put it out there and it's taken off?
I think one good example would be the guy called Blind Boy. He was a sort of Irish comedian, and he kind of started off a few years ago, and it's just him on a mic just talking about his observations of the world, and over time it's become very, very popular and very successful, and he's ended up doing stand-up shows off the back of that. Now that just started as something he just wanted to express himself because he was going through a rough time in Ireland. And it just, over time, it caught people's imagination. So you never know where it can go. And I think what Paul is doing around with getting guests involved who have got a decent profile, these are the kind of things that will really help get you to the next stage. Because like everything else, a lot of it's about word of mouth. People discover your podcast, they get into it, they subscribe to it, and then you keep going, keep doing it, and it just goes from there.
Yeah. And Paul, as it happens, this came out of lockdown for you and the fact that you were furloughed from work. But I guess a lot of the people that you want to speak to have probably got a bit more time on their hands too, which has perhaps made them a bit more easy to get in touch with.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that's going to help is brilliant, isn't it?
So, taking it on the level of it's something for you, what has been the most joyous moment that you have had out of all of this, Paul, thus far?
I think there's two things, actually. It's speaking to guests that want to speak to you, because sometimes when you work in the radio industry, you get given people because they've got things to plug, they've got things to sell. So speaking to these guests, none of them have anything really to sell. They just want to talk about their stories and give us their rock and roll history and all that sort of stuff, the sort of things that we like hearing about, how John Lennon threatened to thump one of my guests and things like that. And we got that story out of it, which sounded fantastic. But it's also the engagement that you get back. I definitely echo what people are saying there. Get something out of it for yourself. Now, you don't have to watch the numbers go up, but having an audience that engages with you. I just get random messages from people just saying, oh, I like that bit, and oh, I've been a fan of John Ilsley for many years, and I've learned something new from this interview. And you think, oh, that's brilliant. That's the reason I'm doing this for, just to try and connect with people and bring something to somebody that will brighten their day as well as it will brighten mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, thank you very much indeed, and best of luck with the Vintage Rock Pod. Where can people find it, Paul?
You can get that anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Deezer, all that sort of stuff. Just Google Vintage Rock Pod, and we're on all the socials as well. You can see all the little videos that I share because I do all my interviews over Zoom, so there's nice video clips from all the guests as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Thanks also to Dr. Gary Wood, social psychologist, author of The Psychology of Wellbeing, and Stevie Middleton, audio development producer at BBC Scotland.